Hi all, welcome to our final week of Intro to Folk Studies together, this last week of our bi-term. The first thing I wanted to mention today is a final reminder that your research project is due today. Hopefully that is not news to anyone, but just a reminder that it is due by the end of today, so before midnight tonight. And you can find the link where you're turning that paper in. If you go to assignments in the left-hand menu and then the research project folder, the first item in that folder is now a link, which you just click, take you to the page where you can attach and submit your file. Be sure you read the instructions on that link about which file formats to use and how to attach and submit and everything. Make sure you get your confirmation for having turned in, for having submitted that file. Okay. I look forward to reading those. I'm eager to hear about the field work that you all have been engaged in over the past few weeks. Couple other announcements and comments regarding last week's discussion board posts. First of all, many of you chose to write your posts on the Mardi Gras in the Media article, and there are a few of you who are kind of describing Mardi Gras as something that takes place in New Orleans, which of course it is, but there are other locations where it takes place as well, and particularly the article that you read was not describing New Orleans Mardi Gras. It's describing a celebration that takes place in a particular rural area outside of the city of New Orleans in what's known as Cajun country in a different part of the state of Louisiana, in rural Louisiana. So just to clarify, because some of you were talking about, I've always wondered about Mardi Gras and Bourbon Street and all these things, and that's not what they're talking about. So they are talking about a different rural celebration of that same holiday and the specific things that happen in that community at that time of year. That being said, you're also correct that many of the kind of stereotypes about what happens in the city of New Orleans during Mardi Gras are also misrepresentations. There are also very kind of diverse and community-oriented ways of celebrating the festival of Mardi Gras in that urban New Orleans context that are also different from some of the kind of stereotypical party scenes that you may associate with the holiday. So just a clarification there. You all did a nice job kind of making some connections again this week, talking about Mardi Gras, for example, as a high context ritual. Some of you were raising questions about the breadth of this term ritual, all the different things that it includes. So just wanted to emphasize the point that ritual is a particular kind of custom that usually is centered around the idea of transformation, right? So usually ritual is bringing about some sort of change, whether that's a kind of minor change like the ritual transformation of bad luck into good luck when you toss salt over your shoulder, or the ritual transformation of, not married to married, for example, in a wedding. So, but in any case, that's kind of the central principle that ties these very different kinds of activities together, is this idea of transformation and change that happens in the process of a ritual. You also were making good connections to other concepts in your discussion, both of Mardi Gras and the Santa Fe Fiesta and other examples from the reading, talking about foodways and costume that are part of festivals, pointing out examples of esoteric and exoteric communication, which is great. For example, how insiders in a community are kind of reaffirming their sense of identity to one another esoterically in Mamu, for example, in the Mardi Gras described in the article, or exoterically to outsiders via those media channels. You also did a nice job thinking about how the misconceptions that end up getting communicated about Mardi Gras in particular, and then also about Santa Fe with kind of stereotypes that emerge there, are evidence for the necessity of ethnographic fieldwork. So I really liked seeing you guys kind of making the case for doing the kind of work that folklorists do in order to kind of understand on a deeper level why communities are engaging in particular traditions, what things mean that people are doing, rather than kind of relying on first impressions or stereotypes or all these other things that article and film both document. So speaking of the kind of making the case for fieldwork and folklore, that's essentially some of the content of this upcoming week. Our last week of content will be talking about the applications of doing folklore research, right? And you'll start by reading about and looking at a lecture on some of the kind of broader theoretical approaches to understanding folklore, so different ways that scholars in the past have tried to interpret the kinds of things that we study. And, what are the benefits of those? What are some of the shortfalls of those, shortcomings of those different models? And then also talking about what is the point of studying folklore? What kinds of things do we learn? How can we apply that knowledge? So getting into talking about how folklore is sort of a window into understanding the cultural worldview, both of groups that we belong to and of groups that others belong to. And then what do we do with that knowledge once we have it? What does it mean and how can it be helpful to understand people's worldview? So that's the kind of general gist for this week, the topics that we'll be wrapping up with, talking about those things. Please note there's no discussion board post and no quiz this week. That's because the material for this week will be on your final exam, so you don't need to do both the quiz and post and the exam this week. But that brings me to the last point here that I wanted to bring your attention to. And the final exam, I've mentioned this before and it's on the syllabus, but the final exam is this Friday, March 9th. It will be the link, which again, it's just called Final Exam on the Blackboard site on the left-hand menu. The link will be available all day on Friday, March 9th, so for 24 hours, right? Yes. And so you can log in at any time during that day and take the exam. However, once you log in, you have to complete it and submit it within 2 hours. The exception being those of you who have a time extension through an FNL letter. The exam will cover materials from readings, from lectures. It will be asking for things like definitions, examples of main concepts and terms. There are 10 short answer questions and 2 essay questions. The 10 short answer questions are first, 1 through 10, and then questions number 11 and 12 are the essay questions, and you'll see them all at the same time, so you all can sort of decide how you want to, the order in which you want to answer those. You want to make sure that you are giving as much detail as possible for all of your answers, and that you are always using examples from class in your answers, your responses to those questions. That's very important to demonstrate your knowledge of material that we have covered in particular. There's a couple notes there as well about just the point values assigned to each question, what to do if you have any technical issues, all that, so make sure you kind of read through the instructions before you get started. Okay, I'll post a note or announcement later this week about kind of final grades and just wrapping up things like that. But in the meantime, let me know if you have questions as you're reviewing, or Chloe can help you review as well. And good luck everyone today with getting those final projects wrapped up and submitted. And I will be in touch soon. Thank you. Bye.